Welcome back, everyone, to Tanya for Life. We are starting chapter 23. And this you can find the Tanya text on Chabad.org. I'll put it in the description box down below. In the previous chapters, the Alter Rebbe explained that from Hashem's perspective, nothing is ever separate from him. For the divine word, which creates everything, is unlike a word spoken by a human being. The latter becomes separated from the speaker, while the former remains always within its source. So when a person speaks, their speech becomes separated from the person. But when Hashem speaks, his speech is always within him, because Hashem is the only thing that exists in everything, in anything. So it is only from the subjective viewpoint of the created beings that they are considered as separate. Thank you. They are considered as separate, independent entities. They are able to regard themselves as such because they receive the divine life force, which animates them by way of many tzimtzumim and through the concealment of the divine countenance, i.e., the concealment of the inner ultimate aspect of Hashem's will. The logical corollary to this idea is that anything in which the divine will stands revealed is completely nullified before Hashem and absolutely one with him. In this chapter, the Alter Rebbe applies this idea to the Torah and the mitzvahs, in which Hashem's will is manifest. He demonstrates how one can unite with Hashem's will and wisdom, and thereby with God himself, through study of the Torah and observance of the mitzvot. So in all that has been said above, we can better understand and more fully and clearly elucidate the statement in the Zohar that the Torah and God are entirely one, and the commentary in the Tikkunei Zohar that the 248 commandments are the 248 organs of the divine king. Just as every organ in the human body is a repository for the particular faculty of the soul that is vested in that organ. For example, the eye is the receptacle for the faculty of sight, and the ear is the receptacle for the faculty of hearing. So too is every commandment a channel and a repository for the divine will that is vested and expressed in that particular commandment. The commandments in general represent Hashem's will, and each individual mitzvah is an expression of a particular aspect of this will. It should be noted, however, that according to this analogy, the mitzvot are no more than Hashem's organs. An organ of the body is not one with the soul. True, when any particular soul power is vested in its corresponding organ, they function together as one, but they remain two separate entities that have been joined together. By the same token, the mitzvot are not actually one with Hashem. They are merely, as it were, joined to him. Yet, the Torah, whose whole purpose is to explain the mitzvot, is entirely one with Hashem. As quoted earlier from the Zohar, what is the meaning of this greater unity with Hashem found in the Torah and in the act of Torah study that surpasses even the unity in the mitzvot and in their fulfillment? So this, the Alter Rebbe will now go on to explain. For the mitzvot constitute Hashem's innermost will and his true desire, which is clothed in all the upper and lower worlds, thereby giving them life. All the worlds are a product of Hashem's will. He desired that they exist, and this desire is what brought them into being. However, this desire is but an external manifestation of his underlying internal will, the desire for mitzvot. Why, in fact, does Hashem desire that the worlds exist? Because he desires that the mitzvot be performed. And this is possible only when there is someone to perform them and when there are objects with which to perform them. To this end, Hashem created all the worlds. This can be illustrated by the analogy of a man who travels abroad on business. Naturally, he travels because he wishes to do so, but his internal will, the ultimate desire for him going on this journey, is his underlying motive. And that is his underlying motive is the profit that he wants to gain from going on this business trip. So when we probe still deeper, we find that the desire for profit is itself an external expression of even then, an even more internal desire, the desire for the things which he will be able to buy with the proceeds of his business. Here lies the true object of his pleasure. It is this desire which creates the desire for profit, which leads in turn to his desire to travel. So too, in the case of the worlds and the mitzvot, God's external will, his desire that the worlds exist, is motivated by his desire for the true object of his pleasure, the mitzvot. Thus, the mitzvot represent his innermost will. It is for their sake that Hashem gives life to all the worlds. Wow, beautiful. The very life and sustenance of all the worlds is dependent upon the performance of the mitzvah by the creatures of the lower worlds, as is known, that performing a mitzvah draws Hashem's life and sustenance, godly life and sustenance, into all the worlds. It follows that the performance and fulfillment of the mitzvah is the innermost garment for the innermost aspect of Hashem's will. Since it is due to this performance of the mitzvah that the light and the life of the worlds issues forth from the divine will to be clothed in them. I.e., since Hashem desires the worlds only as a vehicle for the performance of the mitzvot, as has been explained above, and it is only for this reason that Hashem animates the world, hence the mitzvot are figuratively described as organs of the king. For just as the organs of the human body are a garment for its soul, and are completely and utterly surrendered to it, as is evident from the fact that as soon as a person desires to stretch out his hand or foot, they obey his will immediately without any command or instruction to them and with no delay whatsoever, but at the very instant that it entered his will to do so. The response of his organs is automatic. One need not consciously occupy himself with activating his hand. As to the phrase without any command or instruction, when one must exert effort in activating his faculties. For example, when one dislikes a particular task but forces himself to do it on the strength of logic, this effort is spoken of as an internal command from one faculty to another faculty. However, when one's will activates the organs of his body, there is no such command involved. Just as the organs of the human body are completely united with one's soul and are surrendered to it, so too is the life force animating the performance and fulfillment of the commandments completely surrendered to the divine will, which is clothed therein, and this life force becomes in relation to the divine will like a body to a soul. Likewise, the external garment of the divine soul of the person fulfilling and practicing the commandment, i.e., its faculty of action, which is external compared to the faculties of speech and thought, since it functions outside oneself, clothes itself. This faculty of action clothes itself in the vitality of the performance of the mitzvah, and thus it too becomes like a body to a soul in relation to the divine will, and is completely surrendered to the divine will, i.e., the soul's power of action becomes united with the divine soul in the same way as one's body is united with his soul. Sorry, the soul's power of action becomes united with the divine will in the same way that a body is united with his soul. In this way, those organs of the human body which perform the mitzvah, i.e., those organs in which the divine soul's faculty of action is clothed during the performance and fulfillment of the mitzvah, they too become a veritable vehicle, a merkava, a chariot for the divine will. For example, the hand which distributes charity to the poor or performs another commandment becomes, in the act of performing the mitzvah, it becomes a chariot for the divine will. Similarly, the feet which walk for the purpose of fulfilling a mitzvah, or the mouth and tongue which speak words of Torah, or the brain reflecting on the Torah, or on the fear of heaven, or on the greatness of Hashem, blessed be He. When these organs are occupied with the mitzvah, they are totally surrendered like a chariot to the divine will, clothed in these mitzvot. Note that a physical organ becomes merely a chariot for the divine will. It does not become surrendered to and unified with the divine will to the same extent as the divine soul's faculty of action, whose unity the Alter Rebbe previously compared to the unity of body and soul. The unity of body and soul surpasses that of the chariot with its rider. Body and soul, although originally two separate disparate entities, one physical and the other spiritual, they become one entity when they are united. No part of the body is devoid of the soul. Conversely, the soul completely adapts itself to the body, becoming transformed into a corporeal life force. The divine soul's faculty of action, being a godly power, can achieve this level of unity with Hashem when it is employed in the performance of a mitzvah. The organs of the body, on the other hand, although they too are involved in fulfilling the mitzvah, can reach no higher than the level illustrated in the analogy of the chariot. A chariot, having no will of its own, is indeed completely subservient to its rider, yet it is not united with him. Beautiful. Wow. Wow. So really, this is again like a lesson in teaching us what to identify ourselves with. That we've talked about many times previously, that a person can become so confused in this world that their identity becomes, what they think, what they feel. They think this is who they are. And it can be very hard if a person's being very honest with themselves, and then they see that they're acting and they're feeling things that are intense or they're not proud of, then they can start to chas v'shalom lose self-esteem. Then they realize that it's happening all the time. That sometimes a person can say tshuva and say, Hashem, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this again, and then they do it again. And then if it happens again and again and again, then a person really starts to lose self-esteem. A person really starts to lose faith in themselves. And so a lot of the time, I think, will try to close the door to Hashem. They're too ashamed, too embarrassed. They think Hashem wants too much of them. They're not able to keep their own standards. And that's because they're defining who they are with their thoughts and their speech and their actions. They're defining who they are with the animal soul, or if a person's become very coarse, they're actually defining themselves by their body. And that's the part of us that is geared towards emotional intensity or emotional freezing outs, or anything unholy, anything that's not bringing unity to Hashem, like glorifying Hashem. Anything not like that is really like coming from the place of and including negative character traits. It's all coming from the place of the pull of the body towards the klipot, the pull of the animal soul towards the body and klipot. So that's actually has nothing to do with who we really are. That's not our identity. There is something to it, right? We've learned that there is something to it about our elements. Our elements get involved in that. And there's what we can learn, what we can use for the good, definitely, because it's all klipas noga, which again, remember, klipas noga is neutral. It just needs us to use it for the good, and then it becomes holy and refined. But it's also possible to use it for the bad, and then it gets impure. So is the same. So if a person gets stuck thinking that who they are, which is unfortunately, it's very common in the world today, I think, that who they are is what they feel and what they think, then they can easily pull towards more chas v'shalom impurity. Instead of what they could have done would be have like making themselves holy, and coming closer to Hashem. So that's interesting. So the more we learn about this, the more we see truly we are not our body, we are not our animal soul, we are actually just a part of Hashem. We are this soul, and it's this soul that can achieve a level of unity with Hashem, truly true unity, the faculty of action of the soul can really fit into and be united with Hashem when we do Hashem's will, right? Which Hashem's will is Torah and mitzvot, performing the Torah and mitzvot. Whereas we're taught here that our body, yes, it can be joined to do Hashem's will, of course, because the faculty of action is only brought into action when it's wrapped up in, when it's what's it called, when it's fitted into the body, when the body is being used for it, because that's the organ that was made specifically to allow action, the faculty of action of the soul to take place in reality, in a corporal way, in a physical way. But the body can never really truly reach the same level of unity with Hashem, because the body is not alive. That's what it's saying. The body is just it's like an inanimate being, that is just a clothing, it's just a chariot, that it does whatever it's geared to do. So amazing. So that's a really good, I think, hallmark for us, like a reference point to remember who we really are. Sometimes it takes gentle, like, reminders. Yeah, and again, in the situation that we said we brought at the beginning of this little analogy, we have to remember to be sincere and be kind to ourselves unconditionally, because Hashem is unconditionally kind to ourselves. We should not put thoughts in our head and say, this is from Hashem, this is what Hashem wants of us. If it's, because it may not be true. We have to know clearly what Hashem wants from us. And Hashem definitely is not expecting us to be a tzaddik overnight. That's what we learned through this, through the Tanya. Hashem's telling us to let go of spiritual guilt and to have a deep relationship with him, which means accept yourself as you are. You don't even have to change to know that you're accepted. If Chas v'Shalom a sinner is doing the worst sins, he can still smile, says the Rebbe, he can still smile knowing that Hashem loves him. Which means that, yes, you have to work on yourself and change, but the Torah teaches us you can't change from a place of fear and judgment. That does not work. That just opens it just closes the door. That causes you to close the door on Hashem and close the door on a better you and close the door on your true identity of the soul, right? So that's the wrong way to go. The right way is to always have compassion on yourself, and to always have to develop an unconditional love of yourself, no matter what you think or do or feel in any given moment. And you can lean on the fact that, like, what gives you the right to give yourself this kind of unconditional love, no matter how many horrible things, chas v'chalila, that a person may do, is because Hashem loves you the same way. Hashem loves you unconditionally, no matter what you think, do, or feel. Chas v'shalom, we should never do something so horrible, but even in the case where something is not in line with certain standards, Hashem will still love us. And that unconditional knowledge, like that unwavering faith in Hashem's love for us and unwavering faith in our own love for us, based on Hashem's love for us, will help us to have the foundation needed, a stable ground to start making changes, and to start really asking, relying on this to say, Hashem, I know where I want to be. Help me, please. I'm falling like this. I fell yesterday again. I fell today again. I keep falling. Please help me. I know this is not who I am, and I want to do your will. Or whatever it is, like something like this, you're tightening your relationship with Hashem, and you're not crucifying yourself. Chas v'chalila. It's a bad word, sorry. But you're not that's a big one. And to get rid of shame in your relationship with yourself, if possible. Well, it is possible. So the more that you do this and practice this unconditional love, and practice opening the door to Hashem, a figurative door in your mind to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, instead of like numbing out and avoiding looking at certain things or certain behaviors or whatever that are too difficult in yourself to deal with, instead open that door and say, it's too difficult for me on my own, Hashem, but I know you love me unconditionally. Please help me to work on this and to change this. So that's a big one, B'ezras Hashem, and a lot of Yeshuas and a lot of change and a lot of really like shifts can really come about in this way. I've experienced myself as well, but it's only from relying on and remembering who you really are, that you're the daughter of the king, and this king is your father who loves you unconditionally. So really developing that more and more in your mind throughout your day to day, like developing this love of like this understanding of Hashem and his love for you really is like the beginning to change everything. So it means identifying with Hashem, not identifying with the body and with the urges of the body, right? So defining yourself as like very clearly in your mind as much as you can, more and more. And the more you do it in normal, everyday, regular times, the easier it will be for you to call upon it when you really are facing situations where you need it. That for some people, chas v'shalom, it can be a life or death situation, or it could be just a very difficult emotional time. Whatever it is, the more that we exercise ourselves and use this is something that the Alter Rebbe would tell us, use it in your day-to-day. Like think of these meditations in your day-to-day. Think upon these concepts in your day-to-day so that you can, they're already built into your brain. You already have these neurological pathways that will allow your brain to go to it very easily when it's needed. Otherwise, if we're just trying to bring this information, we learn it once and then we try to bring it up, try and think of it when we're facing a difficult situation, chances are we're not going to be able to reach it. Because what happens when we're facing a difficult situation like this is our whole brain goes on frantic. It's like all the circuits are like all the electrical circuits are going on a power outage. Nothing's connecting, everything's everywhere. Like a house, like a fuse can happen, and all of the electricity for the lights, for the I don't know what else electricity is used for the cooking, for just whatever it is, everything. It could be hot water. Everything's not working in every single room of the house. None of the devices are working. So it's that situation. So in that situation, it would be great if we already had a power up package, right? Something that we can immediately turn on. Forgot what the word for it is, but a backup. So that would help us to, move through it smooth sailing. Because these situations are only temporary. Even negative situations, they're only temporary. So you only need to think of it in that way, I think. And then the power will come back on, and then the mind can start breathing and start like thinking for itself and start doing and making logical decisions. But sometimes we're not able to do that all the time. And that would be a power outage in the brain. So the more that you already have these paths developed in your brain to your heart, right? Which is Chassidus. Remember what we learned, that the Friedrich Rebbe said that that's what Chassidus is building neurological pathways from the brain into the heart, right? Remember, the heart is the animal soul where it resides. The brain is where the godly soul resides. So that's what we're doing. We're building already ways so that it will be easier for us to deal with a power outage, and just go smooth sailing. So definitely encouraged you to ponder on these things, on these pieces of Torah more and more, especially this this identity, like who you really are, and developing this real deep trust in Hashem's love for you, understanding Hashem's love for you, or at least knowing that Hashem loves you. So that unconditionally. So that's a big, 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 big one for me as well. So this is what the sages meant when they said that the patriarchs are truly divine chariots. For all their organs were completely holy and detached from mundane matters, and throughout their lives they served as a vehicle for nothing but the divine will. The reason for the sages designating specifically the patriarchs as Hashem's chariot, although every Jew's body becomes a chariot when he performs a mitzvah. So why specifically the patriarchs is that the patriarchs' submission to Hashem's will was unique in its power, its scope, and its consistency. All of their organs were totally surrendered to the divine will throughout their lives, whereas with other Jews, only those organs which perform a mitzvah are a chariot, and then only during the act. In fact, the same organ which today served as a chariot to Hashem's will might conceivably serve the opposite purpose chas v'chalila tomorrow. So the Alter Rebbe has thus far discussed. Okay, so let's just first go into that a little bit because I think this is so powerful and beautiful. So, our sages, our patriarchs, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they really use their entire body and life and every single second and every moment and just their entire being was only for the purpose of Hashem, of serving Hashem's will, serving Hashem. So they did Hashem's will in every breath. They did Hashem in every thought. They did Hashem in every aspects of their body, right? So their blood was pumping to do mitzvot, that they would eat only to do mitzvah, that they would whatever it is, they would look after their health and their body so that they can continue to learn Torah and do mitzvot. And they only did mitzvot, whereas with a person, with we use our stomachs, our organ of digesting is used for, yes, for our Kadosh Baruch Hu. We do pray, we do mitzvah, we do B'ezras Hashem learn Torah when we eat, but we also, it is also used, chas v'chalila, sometimes to overindulge, right? Just to indulge, even itself is just to indulge in the pleasure of food itself is using it not for the will of Hashem. Right? So that's an example. And we can think of examples in all of the aspects of our body, which act that our body can be used both to serve Hashem, and in the next second, chas v'chalila, it might be to serve ourselves, to serve our ego, to serve the Yetzer Hara, chas v'chalila. So that's basically what it's saying, that is a really big difference between our patriarchs and us, that they were completely a chariot for Hashem, and that's why they're called the Merkavot. They're called the divine chariots, that they were chariots in Bereshis Rabbi, so in the Midrash. So they were called chariots. And that's why we're not really called chariots. But maybe we get to a level, B'ezras Hashem, where we are. And remember, still, when we're looking for a better future, we're looking to be like our patriarchs, to be a divine chariot always in our life. That would be lovely. That's what we envision. That's what we want. But we have to be honest with ourselves. And what Miriam says is releasing of the spiritual guilt that we are not at that level yet. So the fact that we're not at that level has nothing to do with how good we are or how bad we are. Chas v'chalila. It's not even in the question. It's about our soul, right? So our soul, we learned in the beginning of Tanya that our soul level is not the level of a tzaddik. Not every Joe is at the level of a tzaddik, right? It has to go through the stages, go through the whole process of getting to the level to become a tzaddik. And that's not everyone. It's not what Hashem's will is not for everyone to be a tzaddik. So some people are at the soul level of a tzaddik, and it's easy for them to relatively easy to keep to be a chariot for Hashem. But for someone like a Bein Oni, who has like you know, it's not at that high level of the soul. The soul level is at a Bein Oni level. So the Bein Oni level, they still have all the urges, they still have all the desires, but they don't act on it, and they don't encourage the thoughts of the desires, of the urges, and they don't encourage the they don't I forgot what entertain. They don't entertain these thoughts. They don't entertain these feelings. They don't entertain these physical urges and desires, self-satisfactory urges and desires. Rather they only use their faculties for the purpose of serving Hashem as much as they can. So that's a great idea. And for a level of the Rasha, level of soul is someone who has difficulties with all the urges and with the action as well, that their action will serve their urges a lot of the time. So all these different levels you have to take into consideration. What level are you? What level are we? We are aiming to be at the level of the Bein Oni. Let's put it like that. We are aiming to get better and better at refining our thoughts and speech and action, so that we do Hashem's will as much as possible, and we don't entertain anything that's other than that, even in our thoughts. But the fact that we're not there every single moment is not something for us to feel bad about. It's not something for us to feel guilty, because, honey, we are not tzaddikim. Baruch Hashem. We can we can admire it, we can envision it, and envisioning it, like we learned in previous chapters. And I'm so excited for Miriam's book to come out, because she talks about this, that the more we envision it, and we think about tzaddikim, and we look how tzaddikim act, and we hear the stories of how tzaddikim behaved, and all of this. So what it does, and how they deal with difficult situations that we face, for example. So what it does is it has in our mind a different way of behaving, and we can love that. It can become beloved to us, that we can desire that, and B'ezras Hashem, that's where we will we'll do that more and more. We'll be influenced by it more and more, right? So it's good, but we should not fall into thinking, we should not allow the Yetzer Hara to cause us to fall into thinking that we must expect it from ourselves all the time. No, it's something we admire, it's something we want to be influenced by. That's it. So B'ezras Hashem, more and more will be like that. And I love that Miriam says that whenever she says these things, she always says more and more, and less, because it's not that you'll get there and achieve it and amazing perfection. No, perfection is out of our vocabulary. It does not belong to a human being. Perfection is not a human trait. So when you say more and more, it means, okay, sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but more often than it was previously. It doesn't even have to be most of the time or more often. It's just more often than it was before. It's not even more often than not. It's just more often than it was before. So more and more will be a chariot for Hashem, and less, B'ezras Hashem, less and less will be a chariot for the ego, for the Yetzer Hara, for the body, for the self will, so to speak. More and more will be a chariot for Hashem. So I think that's very powerful for me, at least, and I hope for you as well. Let us continue. The Alter Rebbe has thus far discussed two levels of union with the divine will. One analogous to the chariot and its rider, and the second to the unity of body and soul. Both these levels of unity are achieved by performing the mitzvot. He now goes on to describe a third and higher level of unity, which is achieved through the study of Torah. But the thought and meditation on the words of Torah, which is accomplished in the brain, and the power of speech engaged in the words of Torah, which is in the mouth, these being the innermost garments of the divine soul, and thus closer to the soul itself than the faculty of action, the external garment, and surely the divine soul itself, which is clothed in them, i.e., in the thought and speech engaged in Torah study. All of them are fused in perfect unity with the divine will, and they are not merely a vehicle, a chariot for the divine will, as are the mouth and brain in which the thought and speech of Torah take place. The term perfect unity indicates that the two become one and the same, unlike, for example, the unity of body and soul, which retain their separate entities, even when they are joined together and form one unit. An example of a perfect unity can be found in the unity of the soul with its faculties, which are part of it, and are thus completely united with it. In the same way, the divine soul and its faculties of speech and thought are united with the divine will when one thinks or speaks matters of Torah. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain how Torah study is able to affect this level of unity. For the divine will is identical with the halachic subject of which one thinks and speaks, inasmuch as all the laws of the halacha are particular expressions of the innermost divine will itself. For God willed it thus that a particular thing be deemed permissible or kosher, or that this person be found exempt and another innocent, or the reverse. Since every halacha expresses the divine will, the unity which the study of the halacha affects between the soul and the divine will surpasses even the unity of body and soul. Similarly, all the letter combinations of the Pentateuch, prophets, and the writings are also expressions of Hashem's will and wisdom, which are united with the blessed Ein Sof in a perfect unity, since he is the knower, the knowledge, and the subject known. Thus, when one studies the Torah, prophets, and writings, he becomes united with the divine will and wisdom, which are absolutely one with Hashem himself. The difference between the two levels of unity with Hashem achieved through Torah and mitzvot, respectively, may be clarified by the following analogy. A king orders his servants to build a palace for him, and he draws up a detailed blueprint for it. When they carry out his wishes, they are united with his desire as expressed in the palace. However, the palace walls themselves do not represent the king's will and wisdom, but the blueprint does, and the architects who study it are actually involved in the study of the king's will and wisdom. So too in our case, the actual performance of the mitzvot, although dictated by Hashem's will, does not actually constitute this will. Not so the wisdom of Torah, which is itself Hashem's wisdom, and the halachic rulings are actually expressions of his will. And thus, when one speaks or thinks words of Torah, he attains the greatest possible level of union with Hashem, who is one with his will and wisdom. This is what is meant by the statement that the Torah and Hashem are absolutely one. They are not merely organs of the king, as are the mitzvot. For as explained above, the unity of the mitzvot with Hashem is like that of body and soul, where two separate entities are joined, whereas Torah is entirely one with Hashem. Now, since the divine will, which is in perfect unity with Hashem himself, stands completely revealed in the divine soul and in its inner garments, i.e., its thought and speech, while a person occupies himself with words of Torah, and there is nothing obscuring the divine will at that time, for when one studies Torah, the divine will and wisdom contained in it come into full expression in one's soul and its faculties of thought and speech. It follows that at that time, the soul and these garments of thought and speech are also truly united with Hashem, with a unity comparable to that of Hashem's speech and thought with his essence and being, as explained above, for nothing is separate from Hashem except in so far as his countenance is concealed. Only then can created beings perceive themselves as distinct entities, as explained in chapter 22. Since there is no such concealment, when one studies the Torah, one attains thereby a perfect unity with Hashem, a unity comparable to that of Hashem's speech and thought, with himself prior to their revelation as speech and thought, but as they are contained within himself. Moreover, their unity, i.e., the unity of the divine soul and its faculties with Hashem that is attained through Torah study, is even more exalted and even more powerful than the unity of Hashem's infinite light with the upper spiritual worlds, because the divine will is actually manifest in the soul and its garments that are engaged in Torah study, since it is identical with the Torah that is being studied. whereas all the supernal worlds receive their vitality only by way of the light and life derived from the Torah, which is Hashem's will and wisdom. As it is written, you have made them all with wisdom. Hashem's wisdom is thus the source of vitality for all of the worlds. Thus it follows that Hashem's wisdom, i.e. the Torah, transcends them all. It must be above all the worlds, since it is actually their source. In fact, the Torah, Hashem's will, is described as encompassing all the worlds, meaning that it is at a level that cannot become clothed within the worlds, but rather animates and illuminates them as if from a distance, from above, in a transcending and encompassing manner. It is this level which transcends all the worlds that is clothed in a truly revealed form in one's soul and his soul garments when he studies, even though he does not see it. Wow, that's really cool. So Hashem's will that is something that encompasses all of the worlds. So it's not like within all the worlds. It's like around all the worlds, and that's what gives them life force and illuminates them. But what we can experience is actually like an ingesting of Hashem's will and wisdom, that it can actually, when we learn Torah, when our soul garments are united with Torah study and mitzvot, then even though we don't see it, says Megillah, even though we don't see it, it's actually really revealed inside of ourselves. Like this same light of Hashem's will is actually within us. So when one studies and illuminates us from the inside. So when one studies Torah, he is unable to consciously experience the unity of his soul with Hashem, which is attained thereby, yet his soul does feel it. In fact, this is precisely why he can endure such a unity with Hashem, precisely because he cannot feel it. Unlike the supernal worlds, where Hashem godliness is not obscured, as it is in this world, they cannot therefore endure such a unity with Hashem without becoming completely nullified and losing their identity entirely. This discussion of the exalted unity with Hashem attained through Torah study, which is even greater than that accomplished by performing the mitzvot, explains why Torah study is so much loftier than all the other commandments, including even prayer, which affects unity within the supernal worlds. Although the law requires of anyone whose Torah study is not his entire occupation that he interrupt his study for prayer, which would seem to indicate that prayer surpasses Torah study, this is so only because he would in any case pause and interrupt his studies. Thus, it is not the law which causes him to interrupt his Torah study. The law merely states that the interruption, which he would have made regardless, be at the time designated for prayer, and as soon as he interrupts his studies, he is automatically obliged to pray. From this explanation of the lofty stature of Torah study, the wise man will be able to draw upon himself a sense of great awe as he engages in the study of Torah. When he considers how his soul and its garments of thought and speech are found in his brain and mouth are truly, truly fused in perfect unity with the divine will and the infinite light of the Ein Sof that is manifest in them, in the soul and its garments as he studies Torah. So this infinite light manifest in one's Torah study is of such a lofty level that all the upper and lower worlds are truly as naught in comparison with it, and are in fact as absolutely nothing at all. So much so that they can only bear to have a minute glow of it, clothed in them without reverting to nothingness altogether. Their main life force, which they receive from it, however, is not clothed within them, but animates them from the outside, so to speak, in a transcendent, encompassing manner. Just like is what happens with all the worlds, that when he considers that the very same divine light that is completely beyond the capacity of all the worlds manifests itself openly in his Torah study, the thinking man will naturally experience a sense of awe when he studies Torah. And this is the meaning of the verse. And Hashem commanded us to fulfill all these statutes in order to fear Hashem. This is something straight from the Torah. According to this verse, observing the mitzvot would appear to be the first step. And this leads to the fear of Hashem. Logically, however, the performance of Hashem's commandments would seem to be a result of one's fear of him and not vice versa. The Alter Rebbe therefore explains that the above verse speaks of a higher level of awe than that which is a prerequisite for performing the mitzvah, the commandments. This level could only be attained as a result of one's observance of the commandments. Now, if the commandments lead one to a higher level in the fear of Hashem, surely the study of the Torah leads one still to a higher level. This, the Alter Rebbe will now discuss, and then we will finish on this point. Regarding this great fear, our sages said, if there is no wisdom, there is no fear. Pirkei Avos teaches us that. In this context, wisdom represents Torah study, and fear, the higher level of
Repeat that. If you could read the line, because there was an interruption.
Okay, thank you.
The computer.
So if the commandments lead one to a higher level in fear of Hashem, surely the study of Torah leads one to a higher level still. So the Alter Rebbe now will explain this. Regarding this great fear, our sages said, if there is no wisdom, there is no fear. In this context, wisdom represents Torah study, and fear, the higher level of awe of God, which can be reached only by way of Torah. By contrast, the statement, if there is no fear, there is no wisdom, refers to the lower level of fear, which is a prerequisite for Torah study, as stated above. In relation to this level of fear, the Torah is called a gateway to the courtyard, i.e., the sole means of entering the courtyard. The only mean of entering the courtyard is through the higher level of fear, as is explained elsewhere. Not every mind, however, can sustain such a fear. Yet even he whose mind cannot bear such a fear, nor even a minute part of it, because the root and source of his soul derives from an inferior level, the lower gradations of the tensor of the world of Asiya, even he should not be deterred from the actual performance of the Torah and the mitzvot for want of this fear, as will be explained further. So this is very confusing. I myself have difficulty understanding this, but it's very, very amazing, very, very deep, very, very interesting. That here. And Hashem commanded us to fulfill all these statutes in order to fear Hashem. But then there's also, we're told, so basically we're told that we have to fear Hashem we have to fulfill the commandments in order to fear Hashem. But also we're told that that we need to fear Hashem first in order to start keeping the mitzvot. So there is a level that is a prerequisite. There is a level of fear of Hashem that we have to have to begin with in order for us to actually do the mitzvot, because obviously, like, we can't see Hashem, we can't always see the reason why we have to do these mitzvot, right? So we have to have a level of that brings us outside of ourselves to nullify ourselves to Hashem. So we need this sort of fear to begin doing the mitzvah, even though we have no reason why. So we do it because of fear of Hashem. But then as we do it, we actually develop more fear and wonderment and awe. So it's a higher level of fear, is awe. That we can actually get to more and more as we keep the mitzvot and learn the Torah. So when we learn the Torah, studying Torah will actually lead us even to a higher level, right? Because first we need the level to actually get going and do the mitzvah, right? To fulfill this mitzvah that is straight from the Torah, right? So then we get to a higher level when we're actually fulfilling the mitzvah. We're doing the mitzvah. Remember, because Hashem's will and wisdom is expressed through the Torah, right? So when we're doing these mitzvah, we're expressed through the mitzvah. So when we're doing this mitzvah, we reach a higher level of fear and awe of Hashem. But then we could gain a deeper level, a higher level when we learn the Torah, not just do the mitzvot, but we actually learn the Torah. Then it gives us a higher level. And so that's what the Alter Rebbe explains more here. And that we need wisdom in order to fear. Wisdom represents Torah study, right? So we need Torah study, and fear is the higher level of awe of Hashem. And this highest level of awe of Hashem can only be reached through Torah learning. It's not something we can develop on our own, because there are many things, like a person can come to good midot even without Torah. And a person can become very refined even without Torah, but a person can never reach true unity with Hashem, and they can never reach true fear and awe of Hashem, and true awe and wonderment of Hashem. They cannot reach higher levels of awe and wonderment of Hashem without Torah, and you cannot get to know Hashem without Torah. You can see aspects of Hashem. There's aspects of Hashem in everything, but it's very easy to get things misinterpreted and confused. That's why we need the Torah. And so only through developing our chachma, our own wisdom within Hashem's wisdom, right? So our soul's faculty of the brain developed, united with Hashem's will and wisdom of Torah study. That's how we develop more and more fear, which will stay in our head, which will be able to do what it needs to do in our head, like to develop this relationship with Hashem, this imagery, this whatever we need in order to be able to grasp this awe and wonderment of Hashem. So it only develops through Torah study. And yeah, amazing. Really, really beautiful. So we have to also keep in mind that not everyone can sustain this fear of Hashem. And the people who cannot has nothing to do with who they are or how bad, it has nothing to do with being better or less than chas v'chalila. It's just the root of the soul derives from a different level of the spirit, a lower level from the levels of fear. So it shouldn't stop a person from performing Torah and the mitzvot. So a person should not, chas v'shalom, say, I can't develop this fear, so I will stop doing the mitzvot. So I can't learn Torah, so I'll stop doing the mitzvot. No, chas v'chalila. If that truly is the case for a person, it's possible that that is the case for a person, and that's what Hashem wants from their soul, is different from what He wants from us. And so maybe in that, then it's fine just to do the mitzvot. You'll still reach very high levels, but we should always try to develop more and more awe and wonderment of Hashem through the learning of Torah and the doing of mitzvot. So with that, we have finished chapter 23 of Tanya, and we will do a quick meditation just to allow all of B'ezras Hashem, all of the Torah that we've absorbed, to really allow it to trickle down into our hearts, to really have an effect, clear effect in our life, B'ezras Hashem. So I invite everyone to relax, close your eyes or let them gaze gently ahead. So breathing out, exhale any tension. Breathing out, breathing in, gently in a rhythm, a natural rhythm. Now imagine breathing in all of the Kedusha, all of Hashem's Torah. Imagine yourself learning Torah, doing mitzvot, and see in front of you how, even though your mind doesn't see, even though your eyes don't see it, even though your mind doesn't really understand it, you can see now in the image of your mind, you can see how Hashem's light is actually going inside of you. You're actually seeing it as an outside observer. You're seeing how this light is being drawn into every faculty, every organ of your body, every organ of the being. And even that it's surrounding, encompassing, becoming a radiant, powerful, divine light that is surrounding you in protection, but is also completely uniting with every single blood cell within your body, every single organ within your body. So you can see, as the observer, what this Torah learning, what this learning Torah, what this really does. And through the action of doing mitzvot, you can see yourself now radiating, shining, powerful, strong, protected, and you can, like invincible, and you can use this power for kedusha, for the good, of course, because you're enwrapped in Hashem's will. So you go and do Hashem's will. So you do mitzvot, that you go visit a sick person, bikur cholim, that you go keep Shabbat, that you keep yourself holy. You're afraid from self-indulging, whatever it is. See yourself refraining, holding back from emotional outbursts, right? Keeping yourself holy, making yourself a dwelling place for a Kadosh Baruch Hu in your heart and in your interactions, right? And you're seeing Hashem's light actually spreading all around you into all these interactions and to the lives of all these people, B'ezrat Hashem. So as you breathe, you have this in your mind, this image of this powerful, powerful place, this powerful, powerful experience of what what happens when you learn Torah, when you do mitzvot, how you connect really your soul to Hashem and your body to your soul and to Hashem. And it has a very big impact. And let this be your identity. Let this be who you are. Let your soul really relish this feeling. So breathing in, breathing out. Allow yourself to identify with this soul being joyful and free, with the body singing with the power of Hashem running through it. And know that all of this divine will and wisdom that's enwrapping you, inside of you, pumping you, healing you, and protecting you, all of this is actually Hashem's love and unconditional love, his unconditional inner will to be there for you. That he loves you unconditionally. So again, thank you, Hashem. Now, Hashem, may Hashem allow this image in our mind, this experience, to really stay strongly in the grooves of our mind and have an impact on our heart, so that we can really be a chariot for Hashem's will and wisdom in this world, in ourselves and in our relationships, and B'ezrat Hashem in the world. With that, we will see you, B'ezrat Hashem, next week for chapter 24 of Tanya.